necklace. Are you ready?
On our program, we explore the flip side of every story. And when you open yourself up to both sides, you'll realize that there are life lessons, powerful tools, and so much more. Now, here is Dr. Veirdre Jackson.
Hello and welcome to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity. I am Dr. Veirdre Jackson, the CEO and creative behind Living Strong Consulting. And, you know, with so many stressors in everyone's life right now, children, families, parents, professionals, and even entire communities, one element that continues to come to the surface is the conversation around food insecurities and deficits, different areas of lack. And as we're getting ready to have a conversation this evening with a powerful individual who has challenged us with a conversation that she wants to share what we're getting wrong about hunger. And we're welcoming Jasmine Crow to our conversation, our flip side discussion this evening. She is working to make the world a better place by reducing food waste and ending hunger. She's hosted events in more than 20 US cities and in the UK, South Africa, and Haiti. She has collected and donated more than 2 million food items to causes worldwide and fed more than 80,000 people through her Sunday Soul homeless feeding initiative. Through her years of work feeding vulnerable populations, Jasmine Crow saw a great opportunity for technology to solve a real problem, which is hunger. So in January of 2017, Jasmine founded Gooder, a food management platform that allows users in the food industry to track and redirect surplus food. Under Jasmine's direction, Gooder has now diverted nearly 2 million pounds of food from landfills, and she'll explain why that's so important this evening, and serves clients including Atlanta's Hartsfield-Jackson Airport, the NFL, and Netflix. So in her flip side discussion, we're going to unpack her journey as a tech entrepreneur who has built a multi-million-dollar company. As a Black female entrepreneur, she will share her impact even through pushback. And we get an opportunity, exciting news, to hear about her new children's book, Everybody Eats. So I know I've already shared a lot, and you're probably sitting on the edge of your seat to be able to start this conversation. So I want to welcome to the flip side of adversity conversation. Welcome, Jasmine Crow.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jackson. I'm really happy to be here.
We so appreciate all of the powerful work that you're doing. You're actually, I know, actively in the middle of serving communities in this moment. And so you've broken away from that service commitment to jump into this conversation for an hour. I'd love for you to tell our listeners what made you get into the social impact space.
You know, when I first graduated from college, I thought I wanted to be in sports broadcasting. And so I was so excited to get a job in Phoenix, Arizona, working in sales with the Phoenix Suns. And through that, I started to see just the community relations side of the sports business. And I had an interest in like PR and just really felt like that was a knack for me. But it was through the actual service component that I started to get really excited. That's what I felt like kind of pulled on my heartstrings. So that's really what got me started, is working with athletes and seeing them do good, use their star power for good. And that helped, you know, from there, it spun up a huge company for me. I actually led a consultancy helping celebrities really start, manage, and understand their giving blueprint. And from there, you know, the journey has continued. This is well over a decade ago. I started working in this space in 2008. So we're now working on the second decade.
Wow. It's as I listen to how we often start, and I too also started off in the fashion industry. And so recognizing I thought that that was my path, but being able to connect and serve communities and children and families, that heart work that we often talk about absolutely has a magnetic pull when we allow our hearts and our minds and our spirit to get connected to it. So tell us a little bit about what makes Gooder different than the typical food bank.
I think that's a great question. I appreciate you asking that because we don't get that too often. But I think what really makes Gooder different is that we focus on giving people meals versus giving people food. And I did a TED talk about this in 2019, and I recalled, volunteering at a food bank. And I always want to say, for a nonprofit organization that I really respect, they do a lot of work with homelessness, and they were contacted by a local food bank. So they started doing a pantry for people, that were struggling with poverty in the community. So I volunteered with them, and just the food that they received to give to people, it was not cohesive. I talk about there being like a gallon of barbecue sauce, like a miniature can of corn. I want to say there was a can of like black beans, or I think they were like northern beans, and a can of peas, and then like the French fried green onions, and I just, a bag of potato chips and some noodles and some Belvita breakfast bars. And there were just so many people waiting for that food. And I thought to myself, what kind of meal are these people going to have when they leave? And so when I set out to start Gooder, I was very intentional in that I'm going to start recovering edible food from businesses that essentially can get meals to people in need. And so we started working with chefs that were preparing meals in homeless shelters and feeding 500 to 600 homeless men and bringing food to them that they can actually use to create meals. So I think that's one of the things that makes us a little different. I also think that we focus on dignity first. So if you ever attend like a Gooder pop-up grocery store, people are going to say, do you want almond milk? Would you prefer dairy milk? Do you have any food allergies? Are you vegan? And so being able to provide people with the food that not only do they need, but also food that they want, and gives them that dignity back. I think that's, something that makes us a little different. And we also are a technology company. We're not your traditional nonprofit. We really see ourselves as almost a waste management company that's focusing on keeping edible food out of landfill and getting it to people in need.
As I listen to the heart of the intentionality of Gooder, the first word that came to mind is exactly the word that you shared, is dignity. And how often, even in doing community work, do we miss the opportunity to actually see people and create space for them to still feel valued and validated and recognized, and taking their needs as a priority. So what challenges have you faced as you've done this work and created a tech company?
The challenges are, I noticed, sorry about that. I would say the challenges are there. There are so many, obviously fundraising is a huge challenge. I think it's important that I let the audience know that as a venture-backed company, meaning I have institutional capital that has invested in me, and not a lot, probably $2 million since we got started in 2017. So not a ton at all if you think about the span of how long we've been in business. With that being said, Black women in particular are getting less than 1%. Women as a collective get about 2% of all venture capital funding, which means 98% of all money that is invested into companies is going to men. That's a huge problem. Then women get 2%, and then all races of women are fighting for that 2%. So it is a lot. It's a struggle, to say the least. So I think that's been something. I also say the challenge of, getting people to believe that we could solve hunger in a new way is definitely something that we deal with. We don't see ourselves in competition with food banks or food pantries. I think they serve a great purpose. But what we come to the table and say is, we're trying to solve hunger as well. And we have a new way to do it. We have a different way that we're thinking about it. And we want to solve this problem because it's not been solved yet. There's still way too many people that are going hungry. And I think a lot of times we're met with so much objection around that. And that's unfortunate, because we really have the ability and the opportunity to make a big dent in this problem, but it can't be that people are seeing us as competition.
Right. It's so true. And I don't want to miss the opportunity for those who have not actually heard of Gooder or had an opportunity to do the research. Can you explain a little bit about the process of Gooder, how you do it, how is it connected to the tech industry, and what type of impact beyond, because I know that you're trying to solve hunger, but you're also have a green impact as well on our planet. Can you share a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I guess the best way to say it is Gooder is a sustainable food waste management company, and we are leveraging technology to combat hunger and to reduce food waste. And so on one hand, we work with large scale businesses. So think stadiums, arenas, your corporate cafeterias, colleges and universities to divert their surplus food. On the other side, we work with largely kind of brands. Today we're working with UPS and the Atlanta Hawks, and we are helping them readdress and rethink how they solve hunger in the community. So we're doing a full out Thanksgiving giveaway where every family is leaving with not only turkey, but they're leaving with breakfast meat. They're leaving with, lunch meat. They're leaving with dinner meats, as well as eggs and bread and beverages and drinks and teas and lemonades. So we really focus on giving families this dignity back. And we're helping, businesses not reduce waste. And it is a green thumb thing, right? We are making sure that this food, if it ends up in landfill, it rots, it's producing methane gas, it's harmful on the environment. It's a leading contributor to global climate change. But as we work with businesses to get that food diverted, now we're helping to improve the environment.
It's a twofold. So we're getting ready to take a break. But before we do that, I'd appreciate you also sharing, not only are you serving and supporting communities and families, but what type of impact is Gooder directly having for children who are facing hunger?
We're having a lot, and I think we can dig into that a bit more. But essentially what we're doing is we have a neighborhood eats program that we run every weekend where we go into largely like Section 8 housing. So largely businesses where there is, are largely apartment complexes where about, I would say 99% of the residents are living on or below the marginal poverty line. So one of our neighborhoods is, I want to say the average salary over there is about $9,000 a year. That's the average income for our families, which is nothing, as we all know. And so we're there every Saturday. We're providing hot meals on site, hot meals to go, giving the kids meal packs to get them through Sunday. So we help bridge the gap. So that's just one of the programs. And I'm sure we'll talk about some more after the break.
We absolutely will. As an educator at heart, being able to understand how, especially in, and I'm hoping you'll be able to share a little bit, especially in and through the past 2 years, where I can't believe we're talking about this pandemic and the fallout from the pandemic going into 2022. But I'm interested in unpacking that more, as well as what have you noticed and how has the pandemic impacted Gooder's service delivery, as well as what you're noticing in communities. So if you are listening in, we are still going to unpack quite a bit after this next break. To cue this up, we are getting ready to go into our last growth webinar. As you know, if you've been following Living Strong for all of 2021, we have focused on being able to identify a growth plan. How are you not just surviving, but actually creating a growth plan to thrive? If you haven't had an opportunity to log into one of our free growth webinars, don't miss the last one of 2021 on December 7th. our first Tuesdays webinars, which are all free, will happen on our website. You can register at www.livingstrongllc.com, December 7th at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We will jump into our last law, the law of building capacity. And I think that is apropos with our conversation this evening with Jasmine Crow from the organization Gooder. So while we're taking this break, take a moment, jump over to our website and grab your spot for our free webinar, December 7th, 7 p.m. Standard Eastern Time. All right, we'll be right back.
You're clear.
All right, we are clear. Jasmine, thank you so much. I appreciate, as our Facebook community is still logged in, they don't get to hear the commercial, but they absolutely get to continue to log in. Some of our listeners, Jeanette says that so many children need this. She's recognizing the warmth of your heart. Celeste says, I think your way of thinking is so much more productive. You can help food banks for sure. And Cheryl says, this is awesome. I love the aspect in respecting dignity of individuals.
Thank you.
And let's see who else is here. And Chayla is one of our home visitors that Living Strong has an opportunity to work with, who's impacting families and supporting them from inside their homes, as being able to connect them with resources. So I think this is just such a valuable conversation for our entire community of those who listen in through our radio broadcast, but also those who are out in the field supporting and trying to help families find resources. What other cities are you connected with or supporting, would you say? Oh, we got 15 seconds. Look at this. I'll ask you when we come back.
Okay, cool.
This is Living Strong, the flip side of adversity, with Dr. Veirdre Jackson. To reach the live show today, call into 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@livingstrongllc.com. Now, back to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity.
Welcome back. We have been having a conversation with the CEO of Gooder, Jasmine Crow, and she just scratched the surface in our segment just before the break in beginning to explain how Gooder is impacting the lives of children and this issue of food insecurity. So, Jasmine, I know there was more that you wanted to begin to continue to unpack around how you're serving and supporting children and what you're seeing within communities.
Yeah, I think another way that we're supporting children is during the pandemic. Gooder really was the logistical arm for several school districts to get meals delivered to students that were learning virtually. So if you think about how many kids depend on free breakfast and lunch at schools, and then when that stopped, there was no way for a lot of those kids to be able to receive that food. A lot of the schools had like grab and go meal kits that you could pick up, but some families didn't have vehicles. And so what Gooder did is we started delivering those meals directly to the doors of those students and families. So that's something that during the pandemic, I will forever be really proud that we were able to do beyond what we're doing currently with our work for our Neighborhood Eats program and our snack pack program. And we really focus on getting as much food as possible to children that need it. And I would say that the need is still so high, and I never want people to lose sight of that. There is still a great need for access to food in this country, and Gooder is really trying to fill it, not only for children, but also for senior citizens.
Absolutely. When I think about how I actually just have a logistical question as you started talking about being a female entrepreneur. I know as I looked at your background and how you started with, I think it was called your Sunday Soul. What was it called? Sunday Soul
Sunday
Food?
Soul, yeah.
Yes, your Sunday Soul um, feeding program. Can you, as there are female entrepreneurs who listen in, can you give some insight or advice on how did you scale up from uh, the initial starting place of Sunday Soul to a platform that is actually international now? What were some key things, if you think about your process, that you could share with other female entrepreneurs to give them insight on scaling up and thinking bigger?
I want to say first and foremost that it was not and has not been easy and just continues to be a challenge. I didn't have access to funding. I wasn't able to go to my parents and say, hey, I've got this great idea. Would you guys, invest $10,000? I mean, that just wasn't an option for me. So I took kind of the long and hard road. I started entering pitch competitions. I overcame my fear of public speaking and really just started practicing telling my story in a mirror so that people could learn what it was that I wanted to do and what I was trying to do. And so I used the prize money from those pitch competitions to actually build the technology. I started working with customers before I had the technology, just finding some early believers in the idea and letting them kind of help me get to that next goal, if you will. And it was bootstrapping, right? It was like every dollar that I made, I had to put towards something. I raised some small capital, but not a lot. And I really focused on customers. I think that's the toolkit there is if you're not going to be able to get investors, if you don't have people that could just sow into your idea, your best recourse is to get actual paying customers and let them be your investors.
Yes. How did you overcome those difficult moments? As I think about just literally working hard, what did you need to do for yourself and for your mindset to keep you focused and in the forward moving momentum?
It was definitely hard. I think what you have to do is encourage yourself. And I was a big journaler and I still am. My mom gave me my first journal probably when I was like 8 or 9. And so I always have just been someone who just journals. And I remember, and sometimes I go back, if anyone else is a journaler, I encourage you to do this as well. But a lot of times I will go back and I will read my very first journal entry, or I'll start thinking through what things were looking like for me then. And those journal entries really lead me to just a place of gratitude for all that I have overcome. And so I think that was my original self-care. A lot of times people think of, self-care as getting your nails done and, getting a massage and just vacationing. I look at that as me time. I really look at self-care for myself as what am I doing from a mind standpoint to make sure that I can face the next day? Because there definitely have been a lot of days, and I'm a very vulnerable person where I've been one of the things we do at our team, in our team meetings, is we have temperature check-ins. Are you green, red, or yellow? If you're green, everything is great. If you're yellow, there are some things that are some concerns that are causing you some worry. And then if you're red, it's all hands on deck. What can we do to help this person? And so a lot of times it's just being real with yourself on what you're going through. And that's one of the things I always used to focus on.
That is so valuable. As I think about organizations that, as a coach, we have been talking about how self-care isn't just the thing that you're buying or the place that you're going, but it's actually how you're paying attention to yourself. And what you just shared as a tip or tool for leaders, I think is the next level conversation. So often organizations have placed self-care on the shoulders solely of the employee or the person who's in the mission or in the ministry or doing the work. And how are you taking care of yourself has been thrown around so often that much of what we've been talking about lately is as organizations, as leaders, how are you integrating very intentional approaches for not only people to commit to taking care of themselves, but how do you model it? How do you put it in front of them? How do you consistently bring it up in staff meetings, in memos, in the routines of their day? And so being able to model that for your staff, I think that would help it become integrated into the overall practice and even your culture, would you say?
Absolutely. You got to talk about it. I think that's how you model it is you say, like anytime when I start my meetings and we're doing temperature checks, I say, guys, I'm a yellow, or like you start it that way because people want to know that they could feel okay to share that they may be stressed. And I think if they see it from the top down, it makes it a lot easier for them to digest. The other thing that I do is I make it very okay for people to take days off, and we're not shaming someone. If you need a mental health day, take a mental health day. If you need some time off, take some time off. Like those are the things that I'm making it very clear that people can do.
It sounds like true integrity at work, which I think also goes back to how you connected with your hard work and even the process that you built, the example you shared of building capacity and even going into overcoming your own fears and working through your pitch. Many times as a coach, we've talked about with our listeners, with other guests, as well as clients, really understand why you're doing something. And the clearer your why becomes, the better you are at getting people to believe you. You had mentioned earlier that part of the challenge is getting individuals to believe that your process is realistic or something that actually can be done. What are some of the ways that people have pushed back on your idea and that you've had to kind of create a new way of communicating it or messaging it?
Oh, there's been so many, I think people will say things like, oh, well, hunger is already being solved, or the food bank is already doing this. And I would say to them, like, if something is being solved, that doesn't mean that it has been solved. Until we have no one that's going hungry, there's still opportunity. So those are things that I would kind of push back on and just kind of say, like, let's never just give up on the idea that we still have more people to serve, that there's still more people that need to have access to food. I think that's been kind of one of the biggest pushbacks. Sometimes people will push back and say, well, like, why are you not a nonprofit? And I always say to them, I have years of experience in building nonprofits. That was the playground I was in for many years before I started Gooder. And I was intentional about not being a nonprofit because I really saw the business case in what I'm doing. And I also tell people that even as a nonprofit, you're still a business, but there's just two different ways that some people want to grow.
Absolutely. As I'm thinking about making the opportunity to impact communities, entire families, a part of your mission, your vision, whether it be nonprofit or for-profit, at the bottom, at the foundation, integrity has to be there. And that really sounds like that's the place that you started. You're continuing to build, and you're intentional about reaching and impacting entire communities. Where are you besides the Atlanta area? What other cities or what other communities are you impacting?
We currently are headquartered in Atlanta, so that is our largest market, but we're also expanding into Dallas, Denver, Colorado, Orlando, Florida, working in Charlotte, North Carolina. We've done a lot of work in New Orleans, Miami, Philadelphia, New Jersey, Los Angeles. And our goal is to just really be all over the country over the next few years.
Again, and I hope that those who have consistently listened to our flip side conversations, when you have a foundation of integrity, it just opens up the doors for expansion, um, because your truth, then others catch fire to it and want to run with it. So I want to switch gears a little bit and take a moment to talk about your book. What inspired you to write your first children's book, Everybody Eats?
I'm always asked, will I solve hunger in my lifetime? I get that question so often. And when you think about this, Dr. Jackson, we have 1 in 8 people on the planet that are experiencing food insecurity. So asking me like, do you think you're going to solve hunger is a really, big audacious goal that I can't even speak to, but what I wanted to do, I'm a new mom. I have a 10-month-old. And what I wanted to do is really just inspire the next generation to be able to, I guess, pick up the torch and keep it going. So that was really what I focused on. I really was focusing on like, is there a way for me to pass the torch? And if I don't solve hunger in my lifetime, I know I want that to be my legacy. I will be doing this kind of work no matter what, even if, God forbid, Gooder doesn't survive, you'll still find me serving people in some way, somehow. But beyond that, I wanted the next generation to pick it up and keep it going.
You took the word right out of my mouth, legacy, and congratulations on being a new mom.
Thank you so much.
So I have to ask, so how is juggling being a mom, running an organization, impacting communities, serving around the country? How are you juggling all of that? That is such a huge question that we get all of the time.
Yeah, it's a lot, it is a lot. And I always say my partner is in the healthcare industry. So the last 2 years for both of us have been just a whirlwind. I've been on the ground serving people with food. He's been in the hospital serving people with COVID. And you know what I mean? It's been just this pull and tug, if you will. But what I do, and something that I take a lot of pride in, is I leave my laptop at the office on the days that I know I'm coming back in the office the next day. And that's important so that I literally don't bring work home. I wait until I get, like, if I can't, I maybe will check emails on my phone, but I'm very intentional on making sure that I'm leaving work home when I can. The other thing is, we do things like date nights, and we're really intentional about, making sure that we still have time together, albeit a lot of times our kid is with us because we don't have a lot of family in Atlanta. I have a younger sister, but she's definitely in the age where she's definitely not trying to babysit. So I think a lot of times it's just, the baby has to come with us. But at the end of the day, we really just focus on keeping the promises that we made to each other and to ourselves. So that's, making sure that we meet and we have our time together, and, doing what I can to not bring work home. Because I think me being the entrepreneur in our relationship, I bring work home a lot more often than he does.
Mm-hmm. I think about those workaholics, those that have been driven, who feel like I've just got to do just the next thing. How would you say, or what advice would you give to the female entrepreneur who is actually being driven, but driven out of fear? What advice would you give her as she's listening to you in this episode?
I think, fear and pressure, they build a lot of beautiful things. If you have an idea, I don't think you can be fearful. I tell this story. A lot of people were telling me there was no way that Gooder was going to work. I mean, just so many people were like, this will never work. What are you doing? You might as well give it up. No one's going to ever pay for that. But I also didn't have anything else to lose. I think my fear now was losing what I've started as opposed to not getting started. And I think that's a different kind of fear. I'm much more happier with having a fear of like, what if I lose everything I've worked for, than having a fear of I'm not going to start because what if it doesn't work? What if it's not successful? And that's a much better place to be.
You said the word beautiful and fear in the same sentence. I don't think too many people would do that. And being able to recognize that you can actually use fear as a catalyst to keep you moving forward, that it doesn't have to be something that holds you stuck. and recognizing that it's something that can absolutely strengthen what we call your reach muscle to continue to have you taking risks and moving forward, and recognizing that your assignment is in front of you, not behind you, and not actually under you, as you talked about legacy. Well, we're getting ready to take another quick break. And if you have not had an opportunity yet, Jasmine, where could they find the book? What's the website?
The website is everybodyeatsbook.com.
So if you have not yet logged into the website and gotten your copy or looked at the copy, take this moment during this break to do that and to invest in and support this legacy, this mission, and a very powerful opportunity to give back to our children and helping them recognize that they can be a part of this story. So when we come back, I want to understand what the book is actually teaching children about this mission. We'll be right back. All right, we are clear again. Wonderful. How you doing?
Doing well, doing well.
I know you do this all the time, so
not really, but I definitely tried to.
So this is everybody on Facebook as you are logging in. This is the cover of the book. So please take a moment to check out the book. Is it already out? Is it pre-sales?
It's out. Yeah, it's out. Our hardcover is sold out and it'll restock later, next month. And then our paperback is coming out in a couple of days and people can begin ordering that now.
Wonderful. So when we come back, I'm hoping that you'll continue to kind of unpack for us what's the message of the book, the impact of the book, and any ways in which others can support the work that you're doing. Okay. And also, Facebook fam, as you are watching, I see you are filling the comments up, but if you have any questions for Jasmine, drop them into the comments and we will try to share them on air. So get your questions into the comments so that if there's something you're still wondering, I appreciate the word you used earlier, that you find yourself to be vulnerable, and that's pretty powerful as a leader.
Yeah, you got to be.
Wow. So Celeste says this is going to also share with educator friends. So she wants to get this book into the hands of schools.
Yeah, we have lots of schools and we have quite a few teachers, and we have a donation program where people could donate a book to a teacher. And, we have a lot of people who've done that.
Awesome.
This is Living Strong, the flip side of adversity with Dr. Veirdre Jackson. To reach the live show today, call into 1-888-346-9141. That's 1-888-346-9141. You may also send an email to info@livingstrongllc.com. Now, back to Living Strong, the flip side of adversity.
Welcome back. We have been having a fruitful and powerful conversation with Jasmine Crow, the CEO of Gooder. And she's been sharing openly and honestly her journey of building the organization, of creating impact for communities, and now sharing her legacy that she wants to be able to impact young people with her book, not only through her food, but also with her book, Everybody Eats. So Jasmine, can you tell us a little bit about what does the book actually teach children about hunger?
The book, I guess it follows the protagonist. Her name is Carter. And really what the book is teaching is that, everyone can experience hunger. I think that's the most kind of pertinent lesson that I'm trying to get kids and families to know, is that she volunteers with her parents at a food bank. And at the food bank, she runs into a friend from school. And she is like, racking her brain, really trying to understand how it is that one of her friends can be going hungry. And she just thinks that's, so terrible, and she wants to help. And she's asking her parents, like, what can we do to help? Why is our friend going hungry? And then she goes on this journey to really help solve that problem for her friend. I think the other thing that's really great is that it's a character building tool, right? She's not gossiping. She's not telling people, that her friend is hungry. She literally is just thinking through how can she help her friend. And I think that's what I love about it.
So during our break, you were sharing how schools are connecting with this project. Can you explain a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we have several schools where we're providing the book to, and I love it. We've seen a lot of schools that have ordered, but yeah, we have a free book donation program where people can donate the book. Teachers can request a copy of our book. I'm also looking to do a lot of book tours, so coming into schools, reading this book to children, and my goal is to get this book in the hands of 1,000 elementary school teachers free of charge across the country.
So now you have been charged by Jasmine Crow. You've heard her goal, and you now have an opportunity to get connected. And because I know there are many educators, I sit on the board of the Black Women's Educational Alliance. And so I know that the hands and feet of women who can jump in and absolutely help you with that goal and make it happen. When I think about how so many children have been struggling, they were struggling before the pandemic, and they have been struggling after. And then the face of hunger has continued to change. And in some respects, I think individuals have discovered the parallel process of lives, that it's just by grace, there go I. And so being able to, again, just as you shared, have that character moment of what am I going to do when I see a fellow man or woman or family in need? Am I going to gossip, or am I actually going to roll up my sleeves and get involved and get connected? Can you tell individuals what are the other ways that they could potentially support your mission and your work?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest ways that people can support our work is just to connect us to new businesses, connect us to potentially, companies that you work with, businesses that you work at, let them know what we do on the food diversion side. But also if you work for a large scale company like a UPS or a State Farm, let them know what Gooder is doing to address hunger, and maybe their community relations team can join us to get started as well.
So you mentioned two companies that are very different categories that I would think of when I'm talking about food distribution. Can you give a couple of characteristics to give our listeners some ideas about whether or not their company might be a good fit, or ways to think about companies outside of just connected to food?
I think the way that they could think about it is they're trying to, increase their carbon footprint, being able to improve their carbon footprint is what I should have said, which I hope all companies are. Then they're a good fit. You don't have to be a food service business to have food. A lot of people think like, oh, you should be talking to Kraft. But if State Farm or Google has all this food at their corporate campus, that's a potential customer of ours that we can help them divert that food. So everybody can get involved in this space. And that's what we're really looking forward to.
So again, I just want to take a quick kind of turn a little bit, because I think about there are several female entrepreneurs who follow. What types of supports or connections have you found to help you as a female entrepreneur? I know you mentioned how it was hard work, bootstraps. What kind of coaching supports or circles do you find yourself in that would be a resource for other female entrepreneurs who want to get their idea off of the ground and actually in front of others to begin to serve and to build and expand their capacity?
A really great quote that I love that says, plan your work, then work your plan. And I think that's what female entrepreneurs have to do. Just start thinking through, writing it down. What's the plan going to be? What are the next steps going to be? And then begin to work those plans. I think that's my biggest point of advice. A lot of people have great ideas, but lack the execution. And you got to execute on that idea.
You just said a whole word. So often, as people have asked me, how have I built Living Strong? How am I doing the things that I do? And I think, just as you just shared, you know what? It's hard work. So be willing to do the work and think about your plan. Be strategic, write it down, and think about really why you want to be able to do what you do. Can I ask you, again, you shared earlier that you're vulnerable, so I want to ask a vulnerable question. What is something that stays on your mind? What is something that continues that you're continuing to wrestle with, think about, that's in either in your work personally or professionally?
I think just surviving. I think that's the main thing that stays on my mind. There are so many people, not only in the community, but our employees that are depending on us. And I think that I want to make sure that that never leaves. I think that's my biggest thing. I think I want to continue to make sure that we're always able to serve just more and more and more people. So I think that's the thing that sticks to me. I think that's what I really focus on.
So wanting to be able to sustain what you're doing, continuing to be able to provide, I think that's something that a lot of organizations and companies have begun to really resonate with. As have any of the fallout from the pandemic actually had a negative impact on your work and your sustainability?
I think on the food, the food diversion side, absolutely, because so many businesses were closing and we didn't know what we were going to do. But on the hunger side, no, sadly, more people were experiencing hunger. And I think our work actually increased in that space.
So as I think about those who are trying to navigate this season, this time, and being worried about their next meal, being worried about will their business or their company be able to continue to survive and grow, what would you say to communities that are actually in need of your services, but I think of you as a beacon of light in communities? What word of encouragement would you offer those who are listening, who feel like they're just not sure about their ability to continue to press through this season? What's something that you would share with them just to continue to be of encouragement?
I would just share that, joy always comes in the morning, and that as hard as it seems that it will be, I think things can always get easier, and just to continue to persevere and not give up. So I think that's the main thing that I would just tell people to do, is just keep going.
I appreciate that. Joy comes in the morning. So we have about 2 minutes left. I want to make sure that everyone understands how they can support you, where they can find out more about Gooder, and again, how can they get access to the book? So if you can close us out with those 3 things.
Yeah, so I am Jasmine Crow on everything. That's Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. So feel free to connect with me there. You can learn more about the book at everybodyeatsbook.com. And you can get in contact with Gooder. We are Gooder Co. across social media, and that's goodr.co. And that is our website, and we're Gooder Co. across all of the platforms. And we're the Gooder Co. on Twitter. Everywhere else, we're Gooder Co.
Fantastic. Jasmine, I just want to say thank you so much. You jumped away from a very fast-paced, impactful day to have this conversation with us, and it is greatly appreciated. Your work is needed and powerful, and I'm going to take your charge of 1,000 schools back to the Black Women's Educational Alliance and encourage all of the educators who are online listening. We have an opportunity to continue to support and move this mission forward. So thank you so much again for this conversation. Thank you for the opportunity to serve and support what you are doing. Check out her book, Everybody Eats. And as I look at our listeners on our social media platforms, hearts are just going up in the air in gratitude for who you are and for what you do. And to be able to connect with the work that Living Strong is doing, please check out our website at www.livingstrongllc.com. We are here to support, to serve, and to continue to be love and light on our planet and within our community. Thank you so much for being a part of the flip side of adversity, and continue to live strong. Have a good one. Awesome. We are clear. Thank you, Jasmine.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. My pleasure. Now I'm going to jump off so I can go grab my, so you said the hardback won't be available until next
December.
month.
Yeah, we sold out of it. Yeah, which is great.
I've got 3.
So we're waiting on a whole nother one. But yeah, we have our paperback that will be available early next month. And hopefully our hardcover will be available. We're hoping we could get it to people before Christmas. But we have our paperback in the interim.
Nice. I want to get it into the hands of, I have 3 grandchildren, so I know exactly where it's going to go.
Yes, please grab it.
Absolutely. So I know you got to jump back to your event, but again, thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good one.
Bye-bye. Hello, YouTubers. Dr. Veirdre Jackson here, and welcome to our channel, the Living Strong Consulting channel. It is designed for leaders ready to lead. Come on in, make sure you like videos and subscribe so that you get notification for everything new that's happening so that you are able to set your goal for growth.